Good evening. We're about to start the meeting. This is August 22nd. City Clerk.
Roll call. Deputy Mayor?
Here.
Councilmember Feller?
Here.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Here.
Councilmember Kern?
Here.
If everyone please rise, we're going to have the invocation by Pastor Sheldon Brown.
Thank you. Father God, we come before you this evening. We ask for your blessing to be upon everyone in this city of Oceanside. Watch over the youth, watch over the adults. Lord, protect us all from harm and danger. Lord, we thank you for what you're doing in the city, and we pray that you'll just continue to lead it in righteousness and truth. Bless us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. If everyone could remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, face the flag over here, repeat after me, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. At this time, we have the proclamations and presentations. First is the Employee Service Awards. And we can ask all department directors, city manager, city attorney, city council to stand as well. City treasurer.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor Chuck Lowry, council members, department directors, and audience. It's with great pleasure that we present to you tonight employees who have reached the praiseworthy accomplishment of 20, 25, and 30 years of service. When your name is called, please come forward. Gracie Ramirez. Gracie initiated her career with the City of Oceanside on August 31st, 1998 as an accounting specialist 1 in fire administration. Gracie has spent 20 years providing administrative support to the fire department and currently serves as administrative secretary. Let's congratulate Gracie for 20 years of service to our community. Yeah, Al, if you would like.
Get employee discounts because there's two.
Thank you, Gracie. Next, we have Mark Anderson. Mark launched his career with the City of Oceanside on August 17, 1998 as Chief Plant Operator. 9 years later, in June 2007, Mark advanced to Water Utilities Division Manager, where he continues to serve our community. Let's congratulate Mark for 20 years of service. Thank you, Mark. Next, we have Robert Straub. Robert launched his career with the City of Oceanside on July 20th, 1998 as a wastewater plant operator 2. Robert has spent 20 years working at the San Luis Rey wastewater plant, where he currently serves as wastewater plant operator 3. Let's congratulate Robert for 20 years of service to our community. Thank you, Robert. Next, we have our employee with 25 years of service, Jeffrey Brandt. Jeffrey initiated his career with the City of Oceanside on July 18, 1993, as a police officer. Jeff has devoted his career of 25 years to public safety and currently serves as police sergeant. Let's congratulate Jeff for 25 years of service to our community. Thank you, Jeff. Next, we have two employees with 30 years of service. Vaughn Murphy. Vaughn launched his career with the City of Oceanside on May 23, 1988, as a Maintenance Worker 1 in the Water Utilities Department. In March 2002, Vaughn left Water Utilities to join Public Works, where he currently serves as Maintenance Worker 3, Street Sweeper Operator. Let's congratulate Vaughn for 30 years of service to our community. Thank you, Vaughn. And lastly, we have Scott Spiegel. Scott initiated his career with the City of Oceanside on August 14, 1988, as a Maintenance Worker 1 in the Water Utilities Sewer Department. Scott has held several positions within Water Utilities and currently serves as Chief Plant Operator of the San Luis Rey Wastewater Plant. Let's congratulate Scott for 30 years of service to our community. Thank you, and that concludes our service awards for tonight. Congratulations once again.
It's on the agenda.
How are you?
Doing really well, thank you. How are you? All right.
Closed session report.
Okay, I'll go ahead and give the closed session report. The council did meet earlier to discuss the status of labor negotiations involving the Oceanside Fire Management Association and the management employees of the City of Oceanside. And we'll be discussing the Oceanside Fire Association after this meeting. There's no action under the Brown Act to report at this time.
Great. Next, we have the consent calendar.
Yes.
Consent calendar, we have item number 6 has been pulled for discussion by the public.
Move approval?
Second. All right. Please vote. Motion approved, 4-0.
This is,
Item number 6 is approval of amendments 4 and 5 in the amounts of $21,361 and $236,982, respectively, to the professional service agreement with Infrastructure Engineering Corporation for a revised contract amount of $1,009,155 for the Oceanside Boulevard Lift Station Design Services, authorization for the city manager to execute the amendments, and authorization to reject all bids for the construction of the project and to re-advertise the project for bid. The member of the public who wishes to speak on this item is Cameron Katabian.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Cameron Katabian. I am in-house counsel for TechCom International. We were the apparent low bidder on this project. Just a quick background. We, of course, are not objecting to amendments 4 and 5, only to the motion to reject all bids. This project was bid on July 10th with an engineering estimate of $7.4 million. TechCom was the apparent low bidder with a bid of $8,027,829. The project was actually 1 week later approved by the Utilities Commission. The city staff subsequently ended up changing their recommendation and decided to reject all bids. Our issue with this at this point is that if you go through the city's staff report, the reason that, on one hand, the reason they're saying that they decided to change their recommendation is because of a bid protest. But that bid protest does not seem to have anything of any substantive issue with TechCom's bid. The reasons that the city staff later on state is that they would like to, 1, it exceeded the engineering estimate, 2, they would like to do value-added engineering, and 3, there was some planning commission comments, which I believe amendments 4 and 5 are taken care of. The issue with exceeding the engineering estimate seems to be a non-issue because at one point the Utility Commission did approve the project. We're within 8.5% of the engineering estimate, which usually municipalities seem to put a 10% contingency on these type of things. This does not seem like a large amount, which would require a rejection of the bid. Conducting value-added engineering is the next reason. Again, we don't see any substantive examples or any idea of how we're going to be doing value-added engineering within the report. And frankly, we can't see how they're going to be lowering the value of the project while adding minor architectural and spending more money with engineering. And the last thing is the Planning Commission comments, which we're fine with. Obviously, if they want to change some architectural issues with the building, we would be more than happy to accommodate. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at our response to the staff report, but we've dealt with the same type of thing in the past with the city of San Diego, and we were able to resolve a lot of post-bid issues when one of the projects was deemed a historical monument, and we ended up winning a bunch of awards for that. I will conclude that we are a small, woman-owned minority business, and this is a pretty big hit for us. So we would ask that the council members please review our documentation, not reject our bid, but in lieu of that, alternatively, at least send this back to the esteemed city attorney and see if we could resolve this in another matter. Thank you.
No further public on this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Kern.
Before I go, is there any comment you want to make, Mr. City Attorney, on this?
I'll just point out that under the Public Contract Code 20166, the City Council has the absolute discretion to reject all bids. My understanding, it's the staff recommendation to reject all bids, not for the reasons stated in the bid protest, but primarily because of the amount that's significantly over the engineer's estimate and the ability to do value-added engineering.
Okay. With that, I'm going to move staff's recommendation to reject all bids. I understand you with the Utility Commission. I want you to understand the Utility Commission is not a decision-making body. They're an advisory body to this body, and we are the decision-making body. And so I'm going to move that we adhere to staff's recommendations.
I'll second.
Want to speak?
Yeah. Are you recognizing me to speak?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your efforts, and staff has, as indicated in the staff report, indicated that the bids were much higher than they anticipated, and the reason for the recommendation, besides, and there was a bid protest. However, that's not the basis for the recommendation. It is that all bids received exceeded the engineer's estimate for the project, and staff believes that rejecting all bids, conducting value engineering, addressing the city's planning commission comments, and re-advertising is in the city's best interest and may result in more competitive bids. I mean, generally this doesn't happen, so, the public now knows, publicly what the lowest bid was, and it probably is going to be more competitive because, they're probably going to listen to the conversations between staff and the Planning Commission at a public hearing. So I invite you to, again, bid for the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further public.
Please vote.
Motion approved 4-0. And before we proceed to the next item, I just want to remind the public that item number 14 has been delayed to another council meeting. It's not going to be heard this evening. So if you're here for item number 14, that is going to take place at a later date. Thank you very much.
Item number 13.
Yes, item number 13 is approval of a change order 2 in the amount of $2,150,483 to CDM Constructors for a revised contract amount of $15,087,714 for mitigation of unforeseen subsurface geotechnical conditions for the San Luis Rey Water Reclamation Facility Recycled Water Treatment Plant Design Build Project. Authorization for the city engineer to execute the change order, and approval to appropriate $750,000 from the Water Expansion Fund.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Honorable Deputy Mayor and Council members. Carrie Dale, Water Utilities Director, here before you to speak on item 13, which is change order 2 with CDM Constructors. This slide outlines staff recommendation in a nutshell. The recommendation is to approve change order 2 in the amount of $2.15 million. Authorize the city engineer to execute the change order and appropriate $750,000 from the Water Expansion Fund. A little over a year ago, Council authorized or awarded the contract to CDM Constructors to construct the recycled water treatment facility, which included a 2 million gallon recycled water reservoir as well as a pump station. Staff administratively approved change order 1 in the amount of $240,000 and some change for some filter changes in the size of the filters and improvements to some of the monitoring systems. At the time that the design started, the contractor was not aware of the subsurface geotechnical conditions, and I'll show you why that occurred. This is a design build contract, meaning that the designs are not done prior to the bid coming in from the contractor. Unlike a typical design build contract, which is what you typically see here at City Council. This is a picture of the reservoir that you would see as you enter the plant. It's a 1 million gallon reservoir. It's in ground. And the next picture shows the same site and the location of where the 2 million gallon replacement reservoir is sited. So it's sited at the same location of the reservoir that was being replaced. So with that being said, the geotechnical conditions below the existing reservoir were not discovered until that reservoir was drained. In moving forward with an option, staff and the contractor explored a couple different things. They explored not constructing the reservoir. We also explored constructing another in-ground reservoir, which would have had several operational issues years down the road. We would have to take the reservoir out of service in order to do rehabilitation to the liner. We didn't feel like that was in the best interests of continuity of service to customers. And then the other option was to conduct soil remediation so that the 2 million gallon replacement reservoir had solid ground to be placed on. Change order 2 is $2.1 million. That brings the total contract amount to a little over $15 million. We do have an available balance in the water reclamation project fund of a little over $2 million, but we do have a shortfall, and so staff is recommending that council approve use of $750,000 from the reserves in order to fund the entire change order. This is staff's recommendation, as I mentioned previously, and I will be available at sidebar if you have any questions.
No public on this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you. So this is change order 2 because change order 1 was handled administratively, $240,000, due to needing to accommodate a larger recycling water filter and improvements to the recycled water plant monitoring systems. And I believe we did get information about that. What is the limit for handling things administratively? $240,000, it's a percentage?
Carrie's looking at me. I think it's 10%, but I don't know off the top of my head. I believe it's 10%.
Honorable Mayor, council members, yes, that's my recollection as well.
Okay. I believe I got some information about that, but I don't remember how it was handled in terms of giving it out to the public. How was that information released to the public? That it was, there were some initial unforeseen requirements like a larger filter and to improve the monitoring system.
Councilmember Sanchez, in terms of change order 1, it's through this document, the staff report, that we would make that available in public. Change order 2 is also available through this document, but if you're requesting any further information, we can certainly gather that for you and provide it.
Administratively means in-house, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so it didn't get to a staff report, or it did?
It's in this staff report
Okay.
here.
And if we had not had this need for a second change order, how would the public have known about the initial
So that
change
would
order?
typically come when we would do the notice of completion. It would list the change orders that were administratively approved, and it would be all taken as one action.
Is that a one-time change order that can be done administratively in a project, or can it be done more than one time?
I believe
for
it is.
$240,000.
I believe it's up to the contingency amount, but jump in if I'm speaking incorrectly.
Honorable Mayor, council members, I believe it's up to the 10% cap, and it would also be given to the advisory committee as a way to share the information publicly as well.
Okay. Well, obviously, this is necessary. It sounds like a large, it's $2.1 million, but certainly it is necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and move approval. And I think it's important to let the public know about these change orders, and because it is coming out of the water fund, water bills. Thank you. Is there a second?
Councilmember Kern.
Well, I'll second, but I just have a question. Do we know the extent of the geotechnical issue, or are we still kind of looking for this? And is this kind of a leak? Is it something, is ground underneath just too soft now? I know you have a geotechnical guy sitting right behind you.
And I may call the geotechnical expert coming up. My understanding is that the soil conditions were not of a condition that would allow the weight of the structure to not sink or settle.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of what I can explain to you.
Jim, do you want to?
Perhaps Jim can add to that.
Bill, you out there?
Deputy Mayor, council members, I've been looking at this change order pretty extensively, and the initial estimates of settlement for the reservoir and all the construction was only on the order of a few inches, and they didn't address liquefaction of the soils, and the whole valley is prone to liquefaction under an earthquake. And when they drained the reservoir and did additional borings and testing, the estimates came up to 15 to 20 inches of settlement, and also the liquefaction would cause an additional settlement and tilting of the reservoir of 10 or 12 inches. So that's when they started their negotiations about the mitigation. And most of the different mitigation measures that they looked at, they all were costing about the same money. The mitigation is necessary, or else our reservoir will sink out of sight. And so they started some of the mitigation measures about 2 weeks ago, and it consists of drilled cement treated soil that turns into cement columns that support the reservoir. And so it will be mitigated, and we're making sure that it doesn't have any problems.
Okay, so we know so we have a pretty good idea of the full extent of what we need to do. We're not going to find more stuff as we go along, or
we found all the worst stuff that we could find there, and we're pretty extensive. We're fairly sure that it extends over the whole site.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to know what that issue was. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Feller.
Thank you. If we came to you ahead of time and asked these questions so that staff could present them to us, would that is that something we can do? If we have these questions, they could then, staff could then have that as part of their presentation if we.
Councilmember Kern.
I'm Feller.
Deputy, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Jerry. No, sorry. Yeah, we could provide you with the information ahead of time if that's something that you're interested in seeing.
That's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
So I have a question for Utilities Director Dale. Could you just very briefly tell us what this project is?
Deputy Mayor Lowry and council members, I'm very happy to. The overall project is to replace a pilot project that was producing recycled water. It currently produces about 500,000 gallons a day. We have several users that use everything that we can produce during the hot summer months. So this plant is expanding it to 6 times the capacity. Sorry, 4 times. 6 times, 3 million gallons produced, 2 million gallons stored, and a pump station. So it will provide recycled water to other parts of Oceanside, including the downtown area, along the 76 corridor, down through El Camino Real. So there's some larger users that are waiting for us to have this supply available to them.
Great. So you told us about this some time ago, and that it was really expensive to put in any infrastructure needs for recycled or recaptured or reclaimed water, including moving it out to the locations that need it. So I'm sorry that we have this additional amount, but it's definitely a worthy project, so I hope we can vote on this item. Thank you. Please vote.
Motion approved 4-0.
17. Item 17.
Yes, items off the agenda. A few people have removed their names from that. So yeah, we can begin.
17.
I'll call you 2 at a time.
The ordinance. I think he called 17.
Oh, I'm
which
so
is
sorry.
the adoption of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oceanside repealing Articles 5, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 14, 14.5, 17, 32, 34, 40, and 41 of the 1986 zoning ordinance, and amending Articles 10, 11, 13, 30, and 41, and adding Articles 10C, 11C, and 13C to the comprehensive zoning ordinance.
We have two members of the public wishing to speak on this item, Arlene Hammerschmidt and Michael Odegaard.
Arlene Hammerschmidt, ruralish Ivy Road. Yeah, that too, in Fire Mountain. I had a couple of questions. I have been diligently studying these ordinance integrations, and I find that it's really, it's about it almost gives me motion sickness to scan through this stuff on my computer and find the original, and then scan through the stuff and find the rewritten, the new proposed version. So, if I'm retired and I've got way enough time on my hands to do all this studying, that's not transparent. There's got to be a way for this much information to be more transparent to everyone who might be interested or affected. I know that's way too much print on any 2 pages. Thank you for the assist, Michael. Even a side-by-side comparison would be helpful. This is the old on the left, the proposed on the right of the ADU ordinances. And, I really think we can do better for people who want to know in the future. So also, I had some questions that I really hope someone on the council might answer. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for calling me. I rushed up here and took up all my time. One is, what is the criteria that was used to decide when the 80s version and the 90s version of the code conflicted? And what criteria was used to write the update? That's 2. Part 3 is, could we please have an example of how home height is affected in Fire Mountain? Or actually Fire Mountain, because my neighbors and I are up to our teeth with something that's completely code legal, and it's a complete invasion of privacy. So if we could have those questions answered, it'd really be appreciated. Thank you very much for your time. And I also recognize that this takes a lot of work on the part of the planner who has done this. I think that person is probably the only one who really knows where to find these answers. So thank you very much.
Would you mind speaking with the planner?
I'm sorry, what?
Jonathan Borrego. You can speak to Mr. Borrego. about
Right now?
this. Yeah, right there.
Sure.
Yeah, he's right there in the back. Thank you.
Right there. The guy that's standing up.
Can we have him speak on that?
No,
Good.
it's not on the agenda.
That would be nice for us to know the answers, I think. Michael Odegaard, 959 Vine Street. The general word is that this is a consolidation of our development code or whatever else. This is not just a consolidation. This actually changes terms for parking in ADUs. And if you look at Section 4, parking, it says, the old text says, 1 additional off-street parking space shall be required for each bedroom within an ADU. And this is in very good thinking. This is what I've been asking the city to consider, considering the high cost of housing nowadays. However, that is stricken out, and it says 1 parking space per unit, per ADU. And then there's another section, E, that says that there are some certain conditions that will exempt any parking. And included in that is if you live within a half mile of a bus stop, no. No, maybe a train station, but not a bus stop. We don't define transit-oriented districts by bus stops. They're sneaking this in. This is going to cause more parking congestion, and this should be soundly stopped and done more methodically so that the public has a better opportunity to participate. Thank you.
No further public on this item.
Councilmember Kern.
I'm going to move approval, actually, to answer the question. We are consolidating a lot of ordinances because there was confusion about the 86 and the 92 ordinances, and we're consolidating them. So that's the reason we're going through this process now, to eliminate the confusion. So I'm going to move approval.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you. This is on the agenda. It's a public hearing, and my preference would have been to have had the question that was being asked by Ms. Arlene Hammerschmidt to be answered by Mr. Borrego, on the record. This is not an item, not on the agenda comment. Her comment was specifically on item number 17. Yes, it's for adoption. However, I think that she has every right to ask and have it clarified. There may be other people in the public that have a similar question. The reason why I voted against this is I am very much against not having processed the local coastal plan amendment in the first place after we as a city operated under the 1992 laws for about 20 years. And so my preference, instead of consolidating, would have been to simply process a local coastal plan amendment to formally adopt what we had been working under for 20 years, and not to, the consolidation basically gets rid of the 92 without very much conversations with the public. So that is my concern, and that is why I'm voting no. Thank you.
There was a motion and a second. Yes.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 3-1. Sanchez, no.
Going to 15 now. Off agenda.
Yes, item number 16, items off of the agenda. Yes, we have 7 speakers on items off of the agenda. I'll call you 2 at a time. Our first speaker is Diane Nygaard, followed by Francisco Fon.
Good evening, Council. Diane Nygaard, representing Preserve Calavera. About 7 years ago, Rick Caruso decided he wanted to build another shopping center in Southern California. He had 2 key criteria: the right piece of land and a complacent city council. He found both in Carlsbad. He then proceeded to spend $11 million to buy his project approvals and bypass the standard project review process used for every other project in that city. And I'm going to tell you, this integral project at North River Farms is starting to look like exactly the same thing here. A big bucks out-of-town developer thinks he can throw our city a few bones and get you to do whatever he wants. We urge you to put the people of Oceanside first. The North River Farms project will be a disaster for our community. The DEIR documents what we were only guessing about before: traffic congestion in that whole part of the city, making it harder for agriculture to remain viable, growth-inducing, expensive public infrastructure improvements that we'll all end up paying for, increased greenhouse gases when we're required to be reducing them, and increased emergency response times. The bones they threw our city in the proposed development agreement are either ones they'd be required to do as mitigation, or they're things that you have full discretion over as part of a general plan amendment. The staff report concluded there was no public benefit provided that would justify bypassing the normal review process. Their bones included things like paying for an ambulance. Our city goal is 5% emergency response time. With this project, 90% of the calls will take more than 5 minutes. 90%. What difference does it make if you pay for 10 ambulances and you still can't get there in time to save someone's life? But fundamental to your review of this project and the others that will follow is what it will do to our bottom line, jobs and housing ratio, the need to improve the economic base of our community. This takes land that's producing jobs and turns most of it into more housing. It takes us backwards. We spent 3 years updating the economic development of our community. Agriculture is one of 7 core business sectors. It needs help with things like agritourism to remain viable. That's why so many of us are urging yes on why, the SOAR initiative to save some of these priceless lands, and yes on why to give us the right to vote on terrible projects like this. So we urge you to say no to any more special favors requested by this developer, to say yes on SOAR, and put the economic health and quality of life for the residents of this community first. Thank you.
I'm Francisco Fan, and I live in the airport area, in that community behind the old drive-in theater, and I've been there for 10 years. We have a lot of dogs there. So I found out there's no item in the budget for dog parks. So I want to know what's the position of the council members on Oceanside being a pet-friendly community. There's no dog parks here. Carlsbad, with 1/3 of the population of Oceanside, has 2. Encinitas, with 1/3 of population, has 5. So Carlsbad has 2/3 of population of Oceanside. And so that's what I wanted to know. And what are the plans for the future on this? Thank you.
Our next 2 speakers are Larry Cornett and Oscar Ortega.
I want to go first. I thought there was going to be more people here, actually. Good evening. My name is Oscar Ortega, and I am a candidate for District 1, Oceanside Unified School District. I live in Crown Heights. My message is to fight violence through the power of education. Through the power of education, I think we could fight, I believe we could fight addiction, we could fight domestic violence, we could fight all sorts of issues that are affecting our community at this moment. I was raised in Oceanside. I'm 32 years old. As a young kid, I faced abuse, I faced harassment, I faced, I was molested. I started smoking meth at the age of 13. I've been in jail. I pretty much faced everything, but also became the abuser. I became the perpetrator, and to this day, I'm still facing for my wrongdoing. I'm still paying for it. But I found a way, I found a will, and I'm here in front of you guys today, asking for you guys to not forget about the people in my community. There's new development, there's new plans, there's new ideas, but we feel in my community that we are not being heard. So I believe that there's no hotel fancy enough, there's no house big enough that can replace the heart of Oceanside. We are a diversity, and our diversity is the blood that runs through the veins of this town. So just moving forward, I would like to ask everybody in this room to come together as a team, as one in Oceanside, to move forward and look at the future of our kids, because the gentrification is not going to fix our issues. new people coming out from outside is not going to fix our issues. Our school is where our answer is. Instead of building condos, we should be building 100 classrooms, hiring 100 teachers, so we could build a future for our students. Thank you.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Larry Cornett, live in Jeffries Ranch. Wanted to talk to you very quickly about what happened yesterday at the Tri-City Hospital Board. My wife and I stayed to the bitter end, and when I say bitter, I mean bitter. It was a bitter end. Councilmember Kern, your note was received by the board. They chose to absolutely not act on what Supervisor Horn as well as Supervisor Gaspar had said. The idea of a bond that Councilmember Sanchez brought up wasn't even going to be entertained. Here's what happened, and here's what we discovered. For those of you who don't know, Tri-City decided that they are going to close their psychiatric behavioral inpatient center and their 5150 crisis center as of October 2nd. Here are the things that we found out. Number one, they never talked to their psychiatrists about what to do about the project, about how much money they might be able to save. They never looked at telemedicine, which is used hugely in rural areas to diagnose psychiatric disorders and be able to vet patients who may require a 5150 hold. They never got competitive bids on their building. So they show you a project, they say it's $6 million, then $7 million, then $8 million, then $9 million, but they never vetted it out. They never went to other companies to be able to look at those project plans and figure out how they were truly going to make sense. The worst part is, after about 100 impassioned speakers, Chairman D'Agostino orchestrated the not ready for Tri-City players. It was an act. He was bringing them to the point of, well, you know that people might hang themselves on the ceilings if we don't fix it. However, nobody's ever hanged themselves in the hospital and probably won't. It was one of the saddest displays I could possibly have seen. The two things that people need to know: tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, there will be a rally sponsored by the California Nurses Association as well as the National Union of Healthcare Workers to basically protest the closing. But more importantly, those unions are going to be fighting doggedly to remove the current sitting members of that board and replace them with people who understand that mental illness is real, it's important, and needs to be treated. For that, I hope that everybody will be looking for this rally. Please come out and join them. They will be sponsoring it. Make the phone calls, change lives. City services that could be off streets for hours and hours depend on it. Thank you for your time.
Our next two speakers are Luke Gerling and then someone who wants to speak about a lip sync challenge but didn't place their name. So those are our two next speakers.
Was that a lip sync challenge?
Lip sync challenge, okay. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor, Council, my name is Luke Gerling. I'm the owner of Cyclops Farms up on 1448 Avocado Road. I'm here because I'm here for the North River Farms big old drama debate that's supposed to be going on, but I guess it got canceled. I'm here anyways because I'm supposed to be at the Carlsbad Market, and I canceled my market space to be here. And I told my workers that I had other important things. So I'm kind of bummed, actually, that this isn't going on. But I'm actually losing money to be here. Thanks, North River Farm. But I really appreciate you guys giving us a chance to come up and really talk about how we feel about certain subjects in the city. I know this is you guys probably there's a lot of things to listen to up here. And I don't know how you guys stand up here all day. But I guess what I'm getting at is that North River Farms, I don't feel, and I'll cut to the chase, I don't feel like they deserve to get a shortcut in terms of your guys' rules and regulations that have been in place. I think that's, all feelings and everything aside, I think that's just really where I'm at. I think that they're freaking out about the SOARs initiative and the voting on that, and I feel like they're scrambling to get you guys to pass everything they can before that might affect the overall health of their business proposal with you guys. And maybe however that goes, it maybe takes them years longer to get this project off, and that's just millions of dollars more that they're losing. As someone, I've grown up here in Oceanside, and someone that has a business that I feel has helped the inner community more than the outer community, whether it's the agro-tourism or the restaurant scene or just feeding local people carrots and strawberries and creating some kind of community warmth. I just don't see that in this project of North River Farms. And I'm not saying that my model is the only model that can be had. I just don't feel, from what I've read and what I've looked up on, that this is a really awesome, beneficial project for the city of Oceanside, other than maybe bringing some revenue for us. An example, I've been volunteering at the Oceanside American Little League, and I think they're having troubles in the next couple of years financially. I think we need to really focus a little more on our inner community instead of giving these big-time developers a lot of their sun to shine. And my time's coming down, so I'm sorry, guys. I'll be back for the next meeting, and I really appreciate your time. Thanks.
Were you speaking about the lip sync battle, Mr. Odegaard, or?
No, I gave you a request to speak.
Oh, I'm taking them in order. So my next ones are Nadine Scott and, sorry about that, Nadine Scott and Chris Pavick.
I was like, you couldn't read my writing.
Oh, no.
Let's think Scott. Good evening, Nadine Scott, Friends of Loma Alta Creek. Needless to say, we're wildly disappointed that North River Farms was able to maneuver out of the hearing tonight by vote shopping. Ninny Hammond, the project manager, put in writing that because the mayor wasn't here, they didn't want to have their matter heard. Maybe they were worried about the vote. Maybe they didn't want to put one council person in an uncomfortable position. But I've never heard of it. I've been here 20 years, more or less, and I've never heard of somebody being able to vote shop. You know, they're continuing it to an unknown time. I don't know exactly what that means. I wrote to the city manager, I wrote to Jonathan and Jeff Hunt. Nobody has a definition for that. That's double speak. But to get to the meat of the matter, I agree with Diane Nygaard. This project's a disaster. It's the very definition of sprawl. It's going to force the rest of the city to pay for city services that will not be covered by a one-time Build Our Houses project. It has nothing to do with agriculture. I worked in agriculture for 20 years. Having a few fruit trees and a few upraised beds, that's not agriculture. This is the nose, camel's nose under the tent. Once you allow the conversion of this prime farmland, it'll be like dominoes. You know, our city seal has agriculture right on it, but it appears that some on the council really could care less about that. You're beholden to developers. One of our councilmen, Mr. Kern, he's taken substantial funds from Integral and the partners. How can he, in the common law sense of the word, be unbiased? How can he even sit and hear such an item? So we're stuck with a crummy project that wants to leapfrog ahead. Then they decide, oh, the mayor's not here, we're going to cancel, but we're not really canceling, we're not withdrawing. Which is it? I want on the record exactly what they ask for and exactly what this means. So back to the original, greenhouse gases, sprawl, traffic. We all know developers pay a tiny portion of infrastructure improvements, generally to benefit their own project and to benefit immediately in front of and near their project. This does not solve fire evacuation safety issues. A fire truck or an ambulance does not solve fire safety issues. And then their latest little quick, tricky maneuver, we may or may not build affordable housing. We may or may not build it on site. We may or may not build it somewhere else, or we may just pay the in lieu fee. What kind of council are you that allows a developer to so thoroughly manipulate the process? I find it offensive. I find it a betrayal of the public trust. We have qualified Measure Y. They need to stand in line like everyone else and wait until November's over. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Chris Pavlik, 1540 North Harbor Drive, 103. I've been renting slips in Oceanside Harbor for 16 years, mostly with a liveaboard permit. I pay rent to the city of Oceanside, so I consider you my landlords. I wrote a letter critical of the harbor manager's job performance to the assistant city manager. 4 days later, my concerns were resolved. I'm just kidding. 4 days later, 2 Oceanside police officers came knocking on my home for a friendly chat. The chat was recorded on a police body cam. We are filmed with body cams. The harbor is ringed with security cameras. The police deploy covert cameras, and starting a few months ago, an electronic key system records when we come home, when we do laundry, and even how often we go to the bathroom. A clear policy governing the use of the generated database is unavailable or non-existent. The harbor also keeps a dossier on every slip renter, shares office space with the police, and freely exchange information about citizens. These are the very elements of a police state. I would know, I grew up in one. Liveaboards do not forfeit their rights at the harbor entrance, and they are not second-class citizens, as one council member might lead you to believe. My hope is that you will seriously examine the seemingly unchecked relationship between a civilian and law enforcement agency in Oceanside Harbor and address concerns about the harbor manager's job performance in a manner consistent with democratic principles. Thank you.
Our next two speakers are Michael Odegaard and Damian Johnson.
Council members, the presentation of the North whatever farms was a fairly typical, what we call rural development scheme. There was nothing very special about it. I've designed many of them in my career. I want to tell you a little bit about real agricultural tourism as it's lived in Hawaii. It's a phenomenon called WWOOF, W-W-O-O-F. It's the Worldwide Organization of Organic Farms. And what they do is they allow people to pitch a tent on their property, on their organic farm, in exchange for 10 hours of work per week. And the idea of this is it teaches people how to organic farm. That's a real agricultural program. What the SWA group, as much as I love them, I used to work for them, what they presented to you was nothing special. In fact, what they're trying to do with you right now is they're trying to negotiate down the very minimum development standards that they can implement on that project, okay? There is no guarantee that the existing zoning will be improved upon by their clustering of homes. In fact, if recent news proves anything, it shows that people aren't irrigating their fuel modification zones. And we already saw, coming out of Bonsall, the potential for that to come into Oceanside. By changing to a pod-type clustering of homes, you're going to create necessity for fuel modification zones that you wouldn't need if agricultural use was distributed throughout that property. Please reconsider that and don't be fooled.
Hello, my name is Damian Johnson. I'm the father of 6 children. I run a skilled nursing facility here in the area. We provide care for men and women with a wide range of complicated medical challenges. Many community members like myself were surprised at the last city council meeting when you moved to allow locally based marijuana delivery services to operate in Oceanside. There was no effort to publicize this change or seek public comment. I would have spoken against it if I had known. There are many people concerned about the impact this could have on our city, its health, its budget, including hospitals, and the effect on the police department. The state doesn't require bud tenders, as they're called, to have any training in science or medicine. They're salespeople, not doctors or pharmacists. This measure will increase availability and make it easier for 18-year-olds to obtain high-potency pot with their fake medical cards. And importantly, this measure is unnecessary. State law already gives Medipot patients the right to receive marijuana from a person or business designated as a caregiver. This includes the right to receive pot from permitted shops outside of the city. Finally, allowing these delivery storefronts will open the door to predatory advertising, which our children would be subjected to. San Diego is just filled with these type of marijuana billboards, sign twirlers, ads on the sides of buses, and even pedicabs. And this kind of advertising will hurt, not help the families of Oceanside and the reputation of our beautiful city. Thank you.
Our next 2 speakers are Sean Lycia and Teresa Master.
Right here?
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Sean Lycia. I've lived in Oceanside for about 10 years. I stayed here after I got out of the Marine Corps. I love it. Don't want any other way. After going blind after 2.5 years ago, my life changed dramatically. I didn't leave my house. I didn't really do much with my son. I didn't really do anything. I've done a lot of training, a lot of schooling, but I feel like a lot of things can be helped, for the blind community. The blind community is pretty big. It's just not noticed because we're blind. We can't see. But there is a lot of us out there, and audible lights are very helpful. It takes a lot to cross the street with your eyes closed, and I don't know if anybody's done it, but it's not easy. And those help a lot. And I hear a lot of people talking about this beautiful city and stuff. And that's great. The trees and all that stuff also get in the way of the sidewalks. And I think all of those things are awesome things. And I love the city. After I got out of the Marine Corps, it's a great city. And I love it. And I don't want to move. And I didn't know about these things. And this is awesome that I can talk to people. I don't know who I'm talking to, but hopefully it helps and it gets out there, that there are blind communities out there. And I want to be an advocate for that. So if I can do that, I would love to do that for you guys. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Teresa Master.
Hello, everybody. Mr. Johnson, the 6 children, it's the parents' responsibility that when they become 18, they know whether they could or should not buy buds. I have a question. We have HERO and PACE home reconstruction loans. Would the streetlights in Rancho Del Oro qualify for one of these loans? Would the city of Oceanside be willing to let me take a loan to have a street light back on my driveway where it was, so I can find my way home at night? My contribution after losing the light is changing the lighting that was motion detector to dusk to dawn lighting. so I could find my house. So I know that you've closed your door on that. I know the homeowners association, which is a new management, doesn't know how to answer us. So I'm answering you. Can I take a loan and put the street light? Then what maintenance of that light, does that turn to the city? Or do I have to provide a certain amount of money so that it doesn't rust and start to fall again? That's my question about this. The other one is about Proposition Y. You are elected by us, the citizens, yet I've been watching you since I've been here. I don't see all of you representing me. I see you representing yourself. So would this proposition to put changes to the vote of the citizens and take away 3-2 decisions by you, that the 3 may be self-serving? I mean, let's work together on this. Do I need to get a proposition so that all of these details go to the voters and take the responsible away from you? I'm just asking, and my mind is wondering how to resolve something that becomes an issue meeting after meeting after meeting, and there's no resolution. There's no reason why I should try to find home in the dark. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further public on this item.
So we're going to return to closed session because we didn't finish it before the meeting. And when we finish, the city attorney will report out on that if we have any outcome. And otherwise, I'm adjourning this meeting to our next meeting on Wednesday, September 5th at 5 p.m. Thank you.